Can a book be too short to adapt into a full-length movie? There are many, many books that are arguably too long to adapt into a movie. Lord of the Rings barely fits into 12 hours of movie split into 3 films, and the amount of cutting, rearranging, and condensing it took to make that happen is astounding. A Song of Ice and Fire has an entire HBO show, 73 hour-long episodes, and it has an absurd amount of subplots and characters and lore that show-only fans know nothing about. Even the fastest speed reader would struggle to read most books in under 3 hours, so it's obviously a struggle to cut nearly any book down to length. But today, we're going to look at a set of books with the opposite problem. Dr. Seuss Books. The live-action How the Grinch Stole Christmas from 2000 is rated only 52% on Rotten Tomatoes. The live-action Cat in the Hat from 2003, a miserable 10%. The CGI Lorax from 2012, 53%. The new CGI Grinch movie, 58%. The only modern Dr. Seuss adaptation that hasn't been rotten is the CGI Horton Hears a Who, and that's with 79%. Decent, but nothing to write home about. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Thanks to my patrons for voting on this topic. Why can no one make a good Dr. Seuss adaptation? Why have none of them truly lived up to the potential of the books they are based on? I think it's fair to say that these movies underperformed critically, so let's try to look at why that is. My thesis is that this arises from 2 related problems. The short length of the source material necessitates a lot of additions, and the trend to pad out the story with loud modern flourishes that clash with the tone and themes of the books. In short, the Seuss books are good because they are short and simple, and full-length adaptations struggle to maintain that simplicity, thus the adaptations aren't very good. Now, I say good adaptation here with a caveat. Personal taste is personal, and especially with kids' movies, they tend to be really subjective and nostalgic. I know a lot of people who like the 2000 live-action Grinch because they were young when it came out, and they watched it a lot, and that's fine. And Rotten Tomatoes and other review sites are only going to reflect how a certain slice of critics felt. So if you love 2000 Grinch or adore CGI Lorax, that's okay, you're allowed to. I'm not going to say there's any single objective metric by which all films can be judged, much less that Rotten Tomatoes is that metric. But I do want to examine why these films struggled on a critical level, why they left so many audiences so divided. Look at the critic consensus for Horton Hears a Who, the only adaptation to get a fresh rating from the site. Horton Hears a Who is both whimsical and heartwarming, and is the rare Dr. Seuss adaptation that stays true to the spirit of the source material. This, I think, is key. Most of the critic consensus talk about how the movies stray from the source material or don't live up to it, with the exception of Cat in the Hat, which is such an outlier for being horrifically bad that the consensus only mentions the potty humor being particularly awful. Now, I don't think adaptations need to or even should always be 100% true to the source material. By the very nature of text-to-film adaptation, it is nearly impossible to make that transition without additions, changes, and deletions of some kind. The key, I would argue, is in staying true to the tone, spirit, and themes of the originals. That is important, and it's something that the Seuss movies struggle with to varying degrees. The Seuss books are short. They are simple, straightforward, moralizing children's stories. They read more like fairy tales and fables than anything else, about the importance of listening to others, about the value in trying new things, about protecting the environment. Good, solid, clear themes told in a whimsical and fun way. It's what makes these stories so endearing and so prevailing. And they are also noteworthy for their reliance on rhyme to convey their story, something that works really well in a picture book and is nearly impossible to adapt into a full-length movie. The reason that the 1966 cartoon of The Grinch is so loved, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, is that it is literally just a word-for-word reading of the original book with some nice animation to pad it out. It stays true to that spirit by essentially being a high-budget audiobook. It's also only 30 minutes long, even with the extended action scenes on the mountain and the added songs. To turn a Dr. Seuss story into a 90-minute movie, you have to add a lot of stuff. And all that other stuff can muddy or even totally break that simple, straightforward simplicity of the original work. In The Grinch, things are very simple. The Grinch is a humbug who doesn't like Christmas. The Whos are a simple people who enjoy Christmas for what it should be, a gathering of family and friends. Take away all the presents and food and decorations, and the Whos still know that Christmas is Christmas. Christmas, it seems, doesn't come from a store. Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. To make The Grinch 90 minutes long, though, the Grinch can't just be a grumpy dude who doesn't like Christmas because Christmas songs piss him off. You have to add in a bunch of other reasons why the Grinch hates it to fill that time. You have to make him the victim of bullying and let Jim Carrey act wacky for as long as you can and throw in a love triangle for some reason. You have to add in stuff about the Whos. You make them vain and petty and materialistic. You add in lots of jokes and gags. Or in the case of the new movie, you have to give the Grinch a super sad backstory, and Christmas reminds him of being an orphan, and have a subplot about stealing a reindeer and the reindeer having a family, and Cindy Lou's mom, and Cindy trying to trap Santa, and just all this stuff, just so much stuff. And all of that stuff can make the story, which is meant to be as simple as a fable, not that. And while I think it could be done with some nuance and charm theoretically, it has so far failed to do so. Complexity isn't inherently bad, but when that complexity confuses the theme of the movie or bogs down the pacing, it, well, maybe isn't great. I spoke to as many people as I could who have seen the new Grinch film, and the consensus seems to be that it's mediocre and inoffensive, which isn't the worst thing it could be, and I'm sure it's great for little kids, but really, given how beloved the book is, shouldn't it maybe be more? The jokes that many of these movies use to fill time, I think, are the biggest issue here. The original Seuss books aren't humorless. They're often very funny, but the humor comes from the whimsy of the stories, the cleverness of the verses. The new movies... Look, I'm just saying that The Cat in the Hat was so bad, its humor so foul, that Seuss's widow declared that no more live-action adaptations could ever be made of any of the books ever. With varying degrees from movie to movie, these adaptations try to find humor in adult innuendo, pop culture references, and slapstick comedy, and all of it feels less whimsical and more Minions-y. And I think this is what sabotages these movies more than anything else. Even more than the added plot lines and new characters and other nonsense, the tone-breaking attempts at jokes just don't mesh with what people want from these stories. So, what would a really and truly stunning 90-minute Seuss movie look like? Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know which of the Seuss movies you think is the most and least effective. Which ones do you actually like and why? And which, if any, Dr. Seuss books do you think should be adapted that haven't been adapted yet? Thanks to everyone for watching this, especially my patrons over on Patreon, and especially Garrett Robinson, Heba Assad, Adrian Alvarez, Sebastian Warren, and Alex Wilson, and new patrons, Kyle Martin and Daniel Ford. Y'all are awesome. Check out the Patreon to vote on our next video topic. If you liked listening to this queer millennial feminist rant for a few minutes, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell thing, but most of all, come back for the next video. Thank you!